Today I'm going to talk about more Machiavellian game players that I'm coming across in DC. This time it really is gone into the Republican Party, although I have examples of with the feminist crap going on in the Republican, using Meghan Kelley, the example, as well as Huma Abedin, and how their words and their lives and the mommy wars that gets into Leslie Morgan Steiner, her book, Mommy Wars. So it is a very real phenomenon that everybody's just sweeping under the carpet. And the men, I mean, this is creating enormous discrimination against women opting back into the workplace, homemakers who have stayed home with their children when they leave the nest egg. If they want to opt back into any kind of workplace, they're not allowed entry because it's reserved for the young girls. Now, how this is inclusive, that I want to see all of these inclusive and diversity experts up on the stand explaining to me, because the discrimination rate against opting in moms is at 85%. Now, of course, I was watching Bill Maher. I mean, he's funny, but there's some stuff. He also, it's extreme left, and the Hollywood comedian don't rain on my parade with COVID or anything else in the world. I'll laugh at you, I'll make jokes at you, but the consequences of what you all are doing or not doing affects me, or anything in the, anything that's happening in the world personally affects me. Well, I don't like it, and I'm going to announce it. That's extremism, excuse me. But he was saying, what was this interview with one of those late night host guys? I forget who his name is. That, joking, he was, he was sick and tired of being attacked for white privilege. And I'm sick and tired of that. But he's made a fortune in the last decades, and off of, I mean, it's not white privilege that it's minority privilege, because he's Jewish. Well, I think actually Jewish and Catholic, between mother and father. I forget the story there. Like he never knew he was Jewish, or I forget. But see, that's minority privilege. That's not white. I mean, he's not the old guard, East Coast, upper crust, prep schools like the Kennedys. Choate, Rosemary Hole, you got Exeter, Hotchkiss. I mean, those are the top of the top that usually they end up going to Harvard or Yale and those top Ivy League. And then you've got the B Ivy League and then your C Ivy League. And that's what I love about Foxcroft. They're promoting themselves because I was never known as a prep school for smart girls. And here, the smartest alumni they've hung out to dry, and they're all following lead cheerleading party hardy Cornelia Guest and in the golden age of the 1980s. And the consequences where we are today and the degradation of women and children's rights. So, you know, I am of white privilege. The only thing is everybody in my entourage hung me out to dry because I won't buy in to their extremist agendas, whether it be the, you know, because see, this is where I can show, even with my family and friends, where there's no political ideology of the people in the who go Democrat or Republican. It's their personal, financial, and social interests and political. I mean, when you get into the people who are going into like Huma Abedin, or even get, you know, Meghan Kelley, because she's a political commentator. Well, she should have learned something about politics before becoming a political commentator out there espousing, you know, it's just like your Miranda rights. Anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Now, I'm really looking at the ideologies right now with these cases, whether it be the Governor Cuomo case, the Prince Andrew case. I mean, this even gets in to how this progressed. You had the Harvey Weinstein, Roger Ailes, Jeffrey Epstein. There's some other guys in there, and I'm sure there's minor players that I haven't heard of that were attacked, that yes, were real sex harassment people. I mean, that same with Dominique Strauss-Kahn, but as I always say, that wasn't feminist, that was the Sarkozy camp involved in election meddling on American soil. So, but it is, again, somebody that was attacked where there was fire. It was just, not just a bunch of smoke that these women throw into the picture, that there was nothing there except their hot air. But so they established with those jurisprudences and those cases in the press, because this is, you know, their objective is get the, you know, going after the big wigs. This will get the press's attention. Small fries. You know, unless there is a financial or political gain for the press or for the lawyers or for anybody, it all gets swept under the carpet. And of course, what came out with the Epstein case, how everything is just swept under the carpet, and this goes up to the highest echelons. I mean, in my case, highest echelons, Republican Party, we got John McCain in there, Ted Cruz, else in the Republican Party, and that's just my personal case with Spain, without getting into everything that I've done with my activism work and, you know, building the same cases against other congressional members under constituent requests for these Americans living abroad. So, but basically I'm just building more and more and more cases showing how this is systemic amongst congressional members, Senate and House. And it doesn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrats. They don't they don't care. No, Americans have no rights abroad or in their own country. That's what Gonzalez-Linehan versus USA was all about. The American government saying, we don't have control over our courts at the state level. Okay, well, then basically you have just admitted that you are illegitimate under the US Constitution and Bill of Rights. That was 2011. I said, let's go to town on that one, lady. Let's challenge them. When you knock them, you know, ask a boxer or anybody who knows a fight. Don't throw a punch and walk away. You punch and then you punch and then you punch and then you punch and then you punch until your adversary says, you know, lifts up his hand if it's you know, wrestling or anything, or it's a knockout if it's a boxing. That's how you fight. Like a little wimp or a little girl. Oh, look, I mean, this is what just drives me crazy with Carrie Bettinger Lopez and Women's Link Worldwide with González Carreño versus Spain, 2014. Oh, look at us. Look at how great we are. Can everybody give us a bunch of awards and pat us on the back? Back in the 80s, we had an expression for people like that. You want a medal or a chest to pin it on? I mean, these little ladies, the quantity of money that is being poured into fraudulent domestic violence, human rights, and women's rights NGOs and think tanks now, which basically that's all they are. All they do is espouse a bunch of bullshit, is obscene and criminal. And all of the people working these places are just laughing all the way to the bank, along with the rest of the development community. Because I've been in the thick of it there. I mean, I know it's like you're all over the map. Everybody's, oh, you're all over the map. I'm like, well, that's where the swamp takes me in their Machiavellian games. Not like I go looking for trouble. You people are looking for trouble with me. I mean, for 7 years at the IMF, I worked there. And everybody around me, I'm sure they're going to be like, oh, we had no idea this woman was doing all of this stuff. And I want an explanation on the stand. And why is that? You complain that that's all she ever talked about. And even, oh, I think it's just wonderful, all of this activism work that you're doing. I mean, if the people in the IMF, the World Bank, and the UN cannot understand that this is not about getting up on a freaking podium and giving speeches and publishing books, then who will? Those organizations are totally out of control. The WHO has just totally, I mean, once again, we see how the UN is full, in bed in their pocket staffers. We saw that with the invasion of Iraq. And I had supported that, the second one, because the UN had said, yes, there are weapons of mass destruction. You know, this is a danger in terms of nuclear possibilities and terrorists getting a hold of that. That is a huge concern. I did a thesis back in the 80s on nuclear non-proliferation. Well, what I found out about that was how non-thoroughly Congress examines the issues. At the time I was working up on Capitol Hill, I had access to all the congressional records. Yeah, I agree with the D that I got, because that's bullshit. But it really taught me, what it really opened my eyes on was how Congress, the staffers up there, they don't examine. And as I say, this was back in the 80s, when the party hardy scene of the golden age was just getting ranked up. I mean, my grandfather was here. He came here after 1910. That was after he won. It was the first time a white lawyer successfully defended a black man in Butler, Alabama. That was 1910, and Congressman Taylor was so impressed with his argumentation, he brought him up to work in intelligence work. Now, that was before the CIA. It was congressional people. He was involved in some sort of, I know, subversive activity, had something to do with Mexico, I think. I don't know anything really about it. But my father told me that his father had told him that if he ever said what he had been involved in, people's lives, my father and mother and his mother's lives would have been in danger. So obviously this is stuff like James Bond type of stuff. So I know this has been going on forever. And he was under MacArthur in the First World War and reconnaissance work. So, I mean, you know, all my legal argumentation, it should be no surprise to anybody knowing who my grandfather was. And my spy work in Washington, which I don't go around, I have not taken any unclassified. I don't need to. Everybody's posting all of their criminal activity with all of the proof online. You just need to go and get the reports from the International Monetary Fund to track that. This Kopovich, it's a bailout, banks, bailouts, and bonds about the IMF. It's the only book that that somebody had balls to really do a comprehensive examination, and he went into all of their reports. I mean, he was the one who looked in. I'm looking at it from a totally different perspective, and from the different influences in terms of social movements and the actors involved in creating what Kopovich shows in that book. Oh, here. Yeah, here it is. The global economy. So, you know, why are congressional staffers, for example, Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, not with Maxine Waters on the House Finance Committee, why have they not, since 2016, launched the investigation that I solicited into how the IMF, which comes under purview of the House Finance Committee, is part of the problem. And in bed with the World Bank, IFC, International Finance Corp, is part of the World Bank Group, and their little buddies at GWU, where Mike Milken has his Milken Institute and is in the game, not only in the financial markets, but in the public health, or the public health school over at GW with him. When I saw Mike Milken was back in the game, that was in 2016, spring meetings of the IMF World Bank. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. He was one of the founders of the high risk, high yield culture that's just been, escalating and escalating and fed by corporate greed and greed everywhere, trickle down greed to consumers and to everybody since the 1970s with this junk bond stuff. Say they just give him a slap in the hand and welcome back into the corruption game. And this, with my own case, my ex-husband's destruction in the banking system, I show, because almost every Britain, England, London, and Wall Street control the money, the money flow, the currency trading, which the dollar and the pound and then the euro, with the introduction of euro, has reigned supreme. And this has been really difficult for all of the small time currency traders to compete. And with the euro, with the introduction of the euro, that was part of it, was to help make the European monetary economies more competitive globally, like the United States. I mean, if every state had a different currency, then our banking system and financial markets would not be the world dominator they are today. The Brits, had that domination for a long time, and they lost it with their predatory empire building and self-destructive path. Same thing, the United States just followed their example in economics, in social order, the Victorian era of excessive. I mean, that woman was a freaking hoarder. She had what in French is called bibelot, or as the men will call it, ramasse merde, which means collecting, well, literally means collecting shit, but it's collecting dust. And I have to admit, yes, you want a house that has some decorations, but not this opulence, or because the poor people are following that, but they have really bad taste, and so they have all of these really tacky things all over the place. It's just consume, and I mean, your simplistic modernism that came in really 60s, 70s, or 70s, 80s and has with the urban living has skyrocketed. Everything's white, pristine, with very few, if any, decoration at all, and it's very, very sterile. Obviously, no children live in these places. I think that's the point. But, you know, and when you have children, the last thing you want is a lot of stuff that breaks. So it's all about balance and a little bit of taste. So anyway, I guess I'm getting off, but yeah, I keep on going back to this with the white trash book class. Class in the American dream. Economic stratification created by wealth and privilege is what the book White Trash by Nancy Eisenberg contends. And no, it's not. Real class is about how you treat people, how you conduct yourself, which is the way you speak to other people, the around stabbing people in the back. And that's how you, I mean, that's animal stuff. And at least you're not fooling me by having a bunch of fancy homes and fancy clothes and fancy husbands and fancy jobs. You may be fooling some, but you're not fooling me. And you never have. Not for one single freaking moment. It's always a small child. Each generation pursues its own definition of happiness, unfettered by the restraints of birth. Their own definition of happiness. I mean, I don't know if Nancy Eisenberg has ever looked at Maslow's hierarchy, but you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we can go back to the founding fathers. Happiness is about individual freedoms to pursue one's, you know, desires, as long as it doesn't infringe upon the rights of others. And as long as you are contributing positively to the community. You know, this whole Mandevillean, was Bernard Mandeville, the economist, of, well, it doesn't matter what jobs you produce. I mean, prostitutes and drug dealers, they produce jobs, they produce economic activity. Yeah, there's a lot of economic activity, not only for the producers and the consumers of those drugs, but then the police force that they're hiring and the legislators who make it illegal to trade those drugs, and the police and the court personnel that then kicks in an FBI and you know, all of the investigation that then kicks in trying to you know, prosecute people who are involved in those activities. Yet the economists, well, that's okay because lots of jobs are being produced. Well, yeah, but this is not a sustainable paradigm. We've seen that repeated throughout history. So this definition of happiness, yes, you have the right to pursue your happiness in the extent that it doesn't damage the community in general as a whole, or it doesn't damage other members of the community. And for example, sitting on a podium, I mean, this is no different than the Stepford wives hanging out at the country clubs, gossiping. And I can assure you, the level of intelligence of these ladies that are the upper echelons of power, would be Huma Abedin or Hillary Clinton or Meghan Kelley or any of the others that I've been listening to, because I'm listening, I'm watching. I'm in a lockdown for 15 years now. Everybody complaining about a year or two. I'm like, get used to it, because I got a lot of your little names that I'm going to be sending you for lockdown for a very, very, very long time, because I am watching and I am listening and I am connecting the dots. And ideas do matter. And the ideas that you're injecting here, I guess I went off, this started with the Cuomo case, with the Cuomo and the Prince Andrew case of, with Prince Andrew, that underage prostitutes are victims of pedophilia. No. And I mean, Gouffre even admits being a madam. So why isn't she sitting in the jail cell next to Ghislaine Maxwell? And why the Federation of American Women's Clubs overseas that's covering up all of the crap in my case and all of the what I'm trying to expose about how American abroad are being re-victimized in courts, and their rights are being violated a mile a minute, and the embassies and the consulates, oh, we don't want to get involved, when it's their obligation to get involved. That's what they exist for. So, you know, that is just, how can you have Ghislaine Maxwell in prison when I have the names of so many little ladies, madams, who are doing much, much worse in the expat wives clubs, HR departments, ombudsmen, ethic advisors, mediators. I got a whole slew of people who are doing much, 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 much worse than Ghislaine Maxwell, who is also another example of, you know, the nouveau riche social climbing. Her millionaire father, bankruptcy building millionaire, billionaire, whatever, father, another Trump, Hungarian, but this is in, you know, in England. He was a media mogul. You know, this is all the same culture, golden age, party hardy culture, rich and famous urban luxury jet setting, and all of that. And it doesn't matter if people are on the right or the left, that's what they want to protect, to the detriment to the rural areas, which are getting pissed off, and why we're seeing the escalating violence. And until, you know, the powers that be and the policymakers realize, well, no trillions of dollars being injected into beauty product bullshit, fashion, magazines, paparazzis, everything that goes along with it. Yes, under Mandevillean economics, it's producing jobs and economic activity. So who cares? Well, the poor schmuck hardworking schmuck who's not looking to cash in on all of that cares. And I care. So yeah, who cares? There are a lot of people who care. And really, the IMF needs to be held to account with their partner in crime, the World Bank. They're all three of them. The tribe. What is it? The tribe. The what? I came up with this name. The Penn Quarter Mafia. Pennsylvania Avenue. Foggy Bottom. And we got all the lobbyists on K Street next door who compliment the how shall I say, le plat du jour. And I was watching, so there was a couple of things that I was going to go into. Oh, this is my drawing for Halloween. I've got the black. I still have to get the brown. She's still not brown. The black, the brown, and the yellow witches. Let's get some sort of boards for these things. And here's Capitol Hill. Is board up windows and stuff to make it look a little spookier. Here I do have the flag that's fallen down on the White House. That is why I need to figure, yeah. So it needs a little finishing touches. But as I say, everything I do is political. And here is the White Witch who's flying off in her little ivory tower going up to Mars, Bezos, and all of those others. Well, the country falls apart and Washington is invaded and infested with ghosts and ghouls and all sorts of witches and warlocks and making their little potion with the Federal Reserve and the other central banks. Oh, and I have the cat who is watching. Not a friend of the witches in this one. And we got a ghost over here as well, who's watching, who's pointing to the witches and to the White House. Here's our problem. Houston, we got a problem, and here it is, and you better get on it. And I'm hoping with the Cuomo case, because I said with the Andrew case about underage prostitutes are not victims of pedophilia, that with the Cuomo case, what the feminists are trying to establish there is, it doesn't matter what the intentions of a man is when he touches you. I mean, I really feel like I'm like, oh my God, we're back in like Saudi Arabia, Muslim country. Yeah, like real alt extremist Muslim country, because there are a lot of Muslims who are just as moderate as Christian faiths or Jewish faiths. And there are just as many extremists within the Jewish communities and the Christian communities as there are with the Muslim community. So that's another, you know, propaganda bullshit that needs to stop. But and this is another way that I'm showing that, because I show that like with the Hindu and the mediation process. Laura Nader talks about in The Life of Law that the mediation process really has degraded the rights of litigants in the United States. I focus on women and children and take it into how the feminist movement has just complicated that and or embraced it, if you will. And we've had this, that so it's a microscope of family courts, but same issue as the mediation. Well, the mediation, this is particularly the Hindu. If you compare the Hindu against the Islamic religions that are conflictual, they didn't produce so much income inequality in stratified societies as the Hindu religion did. So that's where you see how the embracing of the mediation process has degraded the rights of people in the United States and assisted within the income inequality, as well as the stratification of the different groups. And why, you know, I have been defrauded and marginalized so that I'm thrown into the untouchables and the widow satis who just, you know, should kill themselves or throw themselves on the fire of their dead husband, so that the community and society won't have to feed and clothe me. And that's really the objective of the feminists and the courts that are being used to, you know, seize property, assets of women, homemakers. They target, you know, this is targeting the long-term homemakers and mothers, to intimidate and to oppress them. On, you know, we see that all over the place. But this gets into, I was watching a movie, it's called The Report. It's with Adam Driver, Annette Bening, John Hamm, but it's about the interrogation tactics after 9/11 and how that became normalized within the American government and American society. And they talk about this interrogation tactics. It's it's the 3Ds, or the triple D method, it's called. It's got, you know, it's got a name. And this is the ideology and the propaganda that they're espousing that is normalizing what is not normal. And the objective is debility, dependency, and dread. And that's exactly what we see is happening within the court systems. You know, my focus, my expertise is family courts. However, I've looked at the other court systems, and I did go through DC Landlord Tenant Court, which I'm headed to once again, over the issue with the landlord. If landlords and other tenants have the right to render public spaces, in this term, in this example, it's a house, it's a group home, render them disgusting and in horrible living conditions, and the people who don't like it have to just shut up and put up? Or does a member of the community who doesn't, they didn't live in their rooms, disgusting, squalor that they want, but they do not have the right to scream and yell or have rodents, and basically going, yeah, place is falling apart, but who cares? As long as I can sit around here doing nothing, watching the boob tube, I'm good to go. Well, then you don't have a house that you were renting out as a boarding house or a group home. You're running a business. No, you don't have the right to do that. That's where I'm headed to court in the greatest democracy that ever lived. And I can't find a lawyer to defend me, or anybody else. I'm on my own. I go in there by myself to the courts. And of course, if the courts don't see you with a whole entourage, like what happened with Gary Kennedy and her family, who showed up at the court for her DWI, yet when Joseph Kennedy, this is Bobby Kennedy's son, well, excuse me, that was Bobby Kennedy's son, along with another Bobby Kennedy, the son of Eunice and Sarge Shriver, got snared in an entrapment to find the prep school kids and the privileged, entitled kids of Hyannis Port. Is it Hyannis Point or Hyannis Port? To make an example out of them, to show how, yeah, the American government was going after the rich kids as much as the poor kids, which was all bullshit. So there, the kids have to take their medicine, but Carrie Kennedy doesn't have to take her medicine. Ted Kennedy with Chappaquiddick didn't have to take his medicine. Ethel Kennedy, God, everybody knows, they were driving around drunk all the time, but the cops couldn't do anything about it. She was Ethel Kennedy. So this entitlement stuff in DC has been going on for a very long time in the Kennedy family, and Kennedy ladies have been as much involved. So that's why I'm like, hell, I want that. Not with the Kennedys. There was a Shriver at Tracy Shriver was from Foxcroft. So I mean, I got second line contacts all over the freaking place with the Kennedys, all over. Yet I'm sitting here. Okay, this place, we haven't heard rats when I've been here. That's been nice because I have lived in places with rats. Nothing couldn't do anything about it. He complained. I mean, that woman from Ghana, she's up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. She's going to lose her house, and she's facing deportation. Now she's over at World Bank. Aurora Amoa from Ghana. She's one of the violent extremists that I want investigated. I have a very long list of people, whether it be the landlords or members of the group homes where I've been living and had to constantly change with no recourse under the law. The people that I've worked with, all of the discrimination. I mean, I can bring just about every think tank in this town down under RICO and Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and Patriot Act through my job applications for jobs there and age discrimination, whatever. They can come out with why they never gave me an interview. See, it's just about providing, the think tanks is just about providing jobs for those, oh my goodness, my latest letters. Well, let me finish with the debility, dependency, dread. Yeah, debilitate me, beat me down, denigrate me, scream at me, threaten me. I mean, I got a tough skin, but even I have feelings. And it really is. And debilitate me, seize all of my assets, throw me on the street, and discriminate against me across the board in trying to find a job, and have all of the domestic violence, the human rights, and feminist organizations spitting on me, not helping me, not addressing any of the issues, too busy cashing in on their industries. So I don't get any assistance from all of these bigwig experts, and then I get creamed in the labor and housing markets while they're laughing all the way to the bank. I have no problem bringing them all down under RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and Patriot Act. And the cases are all there. It's just that the lawyers, it's bad faith because they are cashing in. They're in bed with all of these groups and too busy cashing in as well. So of course, dependency. Well, if I'm living out on the streets and can't even provide, for my basic survival needs, of course I'm dependent. This is exactly what my ex-husband said would happen. His cousin has been in this stuff for a long time. He knows, they know the score. And dread, well, yeah, I do not relish the thought of living on a tent in the streets of Washington, where there is a really bad rat problem. And I'm talking about the rats in the streets, the actual, I mean, yes, they're all over the freaking place, but I'm talking about the actual live animal instead of just the human beings here. Which I'll get into. It's actually Cash Peters who did a reading on Paul Gosar. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. I mean, I would pronounce it Gosar, but that's like the French. But Gosar, I guess. Arizona Republican. So I looked into him. I was like, interesting. Maybe this is the spirit guides telling me to look all over the place. Look over here, little girl. Look over there. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go over and look over there. So he's with the Freedom Caucus. There are a couple of them I'm looking at. Tea Party. I forget what the other. I sent out some letters today, these congressional members, but one of the things that actually shocked me, let's see, first one, it was the Liberty Caucus. So what I'm working on, the Liberty Caucus doesn't have quite so many, but then you have the Freedom Caucus, there's a Tea Party caucus. See, they just put in another group of people to sit around and discuss. But what surprised me, so the Liberty Caucus, you've got Paul Gosar, Morgan Griffith of Virginia, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, Warren Davidson of Ohio, Jim Jordan of Ohio, Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, and Andy Biggs of Arizona. But all of them, none of them live in Washington. They all live in the state, in their hometown. And I was looking at that, there's like 100, because there's this issue of congressional, I think it's more prevalent on the House side. I'm not sure if you have senators doing this. I think it's just on the House. When they're in DC, they live in their office. That's where they sleep. And then they go down to the gym, and that's where they shower and, you know, as eat the food and eat, you know, there's plenty of carry out or restaurants or those places are filled with cafeterias. I mean, you go to the cafeteria of those places, you see what a madhouse of employees, of the quantity of staffers that are up there schmoozing and cruising and grappling up the ladder of success in the DC labor markets and political scene here. Because these congressional staffers, this is just a stepping stone into then later positions within the think tanks, the NGOs, you know, and all they have to do is sit around and schmooze and opine. I mean, it's total bullshit what they're doing up on Capitol Hill, and they go and cash in to opine about it with a cushy job with an NGO or think tank. It really is a cesspool and a big, huge protection racket. And if you go through the profiles of all of these people, you see the trends. That's why, oh my Lord, everybody, oh, it's just an isolated incident. It's just an isolated incident. I've been hearing that for 15 years from policymakers, from ladies in my neighborhoods, everywhere. You're generalizing. This is all normalizing by the women to abnormal and amoral or corrupt, illegal behavior. Oh, it's just a case that fell through the cracks. Oh, you're generalizing. No, I've been demonstrating data and trends. And nobody wants to look at it. And how they become accessories to these crimes that they're covering up. I love that Glenn Kushner, he did a whole thing about explaining what an accessory to a crime was. But even he doesn't understand and is looking inside his little box. And when he realizes the big picture and outside the box, he's going to find out he's an accessory as well to a lot of the crap that's going on around him. Now, I don't know who his wife is, but if all of these people in Washington didn't have such parasitic, parasites as wives, mistresses, and secretaries, and daughters, and now granddaughters, then the city wouldn't be where it was today. Because the ladies in the city would not be putting up with it as they are at present, and part of it. I mean, the racial tension in Washington is just escalating and escalating. And I mean, I know I'm tired. I mean, I am sick and tired ever since I've been back. Oh, I've been targeted by the white women, and that, of course, is not racial, but and this gets into white trash. It's not about race, it's about class. And I'm targeted by the white women as much as the black women, as much as the brown women, as much as the yellow women, because their jealousy that they know that I know that class is not about material wealth, and that I see through all of their little facades, every single one of them. And every time they come at me, I've been doing this all my life. This is what a socialite is educated and brought up to be about, not a little princess on some little tuffet sitting there going, bring me my tea, and gossiping about the bitchery going on about them. No, they're out there. Yeah, they're gossiping, but they're gossiping in the ear of the men who should be taking the lead and are not. It's like with Leah Iacocca, where have all the leaders gone? No, too busy getting blowjobs by all the whores that are in this town. And that's the bottom line. You see it all over the place. I mean, with the Meghan Kelley thing. Oh, okay, this is bringing me to the. So I'm going to finish up with the whole issue with the congressional members, House members, who are camping out in their offices, and the residences are in their hometown, where, of course, their wives and their children live permanently, and they go back and forth. I don't know how many times a year, whether they come every week. It's a hell of a lot of travel and money. So the contention is, well, DC is really expensive, and even a one-bedroom costs $2,000. Well, yeah, I can't afford that. I've been on minimum wage and fighting all of the bullshit that their staffers should be examining, but are too busy grappling up the ladder of success in DC and buying homes and accumulating assets on taxpayers' money, so that they then have that on their resume, so then they can cash in on the think tanks and the private sector as well. It handsomely pays them, because then they have all of the contacts in DC to the protection rackets and the lobbyists, and I mean, it's all very, very cozy little closed group. And these members who, because I'm finding they're, most of them don't have any political background, which is fine and good if they had competent staff. But their staffers, the loyalty of the staffers is not to the Constitution, not to the Bill of Rights, not to their constituents. It is to their careers and their pocketbook within the Republican Party. Because this was, it's basically concentrated amongst the Republicans. And then another thing, even if you had a room here, can't afford, you got your mortgage. I'll get into that. You got your mortgage in your home state. You can't afford, even a 1-bedroom apartment with that mortgage. Well, I've been living in group homes. You guys could get together. Lots of group homes up on Capitol Hill. I'd start a bed and breakfast. Why isn't the Republican? I mean, hell, that'd be a really good business. I'd be happy to do that. I can promise you eat better there and my board and breakfast than anyway. So there are some other solutions. And also, why does your family not come to DC? I mean, this is where you're working. And it's not just a job about going on the floor and voting what your bimbo staffers tell you to vote or say. It's also about representing your state here in DC, within DC society. Now, I imagine a lot of your wives do not want to come. And I agree, and I totally understand why they wouldn't want to come and live here and have their children in these schools, whether it be the public schools or the private prep schools where all of the wealthy Republicans and Democrats in Congress send their kids. And this gets into a barrier of entry for people who are professionals, but not of wealthy families and wealthy means, where they can, they have businesses in their home states, they have mortgages in their homes. So if they come here and totally leave that, then they lose their livelihood. And what if they don't get back into elected? And basically, Washington, you have two types of congressional. This is a new animal on me, because back in the 80s, they all came here. And you see that, for example, Senator Bennett Johnston and his family. That's the example of they come and they stay, and their kids then become part of the American ruling elite. One of Bennett Johnston's son, Steptoe and Johnson, lawyer, cashed in. His daughter, one of his daughters, married Romer, Congressman Romer. As I say, there's two of them, I forget where, but then he was the ambassador to India. Well, India comes into my story many times, and Vanita Gupta of India is just a version of Cornelia Guest. She was from my boarding school in Cobham. So see, everybody, this is another thing. All of the people in the international community. It's the same as the people who move from rural areas to urban cities. Of the freedom they why the LGBT community, obviously they go and they can live their lives like they want. The bohemians who couldn't stand the small town meddling eyes of their neighbors to their different lifestyles, etc. They flock. But you also, I mean, good place for serial killers to hang out as well, and all sorts of anybody who doesn't want the neighbors to be watching what they're doing. The international community has this same mentality of, we're so big, we can do anything we want. We keep on popping from one country to another, moving around the world and popping from one country to another. So we can basically do anything we want because we go to a new country and nobody knows us, and we can, espouse what a wonderful person we are. And it takes a few years for everybody to realize, no, we're a backstabbing bitch. But then by then we've moved on. And this is, you see this, this is the expat community, whether it be the diplomatic corps or the corporate world. That's the name of the game. But what I keep on telling them, like, you guys, I've been jet setting around the world since the 70s, and I know a lot of people. I may be from Tucson, Arizona, but I was from the upper crust of Tucson, Arizona. And even my father in the 60s was jet setting to China and Russia to lecture on his work on the treatment of deep vein thrombosis. So I'm not a little girl from the wrong side of the tracks like Virginia Giuffre or Paula Lucas or so many other these rags to riches. And whether it be cashing in with NGOs like Paula Lucas or Virginia Giuffre or the Cuomo, the women who are accusing Cuomo, they get in the spotlight. It really is just disgusting. I mean, the men out there, and this got into when I was looking at one of the congressional members, Andy Biggs. Now, his chief of staff, and then it's the press secretary, I think it is. There's two, no, the scheduler, because the chief of staff, Kate Laborde, particularly, woman's around 30 years old, came to DC, obviously right out of college. My question is, okay, how much head did you get to get ahead? I mean, 30 years old and his chief of staff. And we'll see this time and time and time again with all of these profiles. Now, this girl, she has a condo out in Arlington. It was like $350,000 or something mortgage. Pretty good. That's taxpayers who are paying for that. See, one of the advantages of having the 100 House representatives who camp out in Washington to vote with their ladder grappling DC staff bullshit they're feeding them. Vote like this, vote like this. It's propaganda that they're giving them. So this is very convenient for the Republican Party, because if these guys were here in full force with their wives and their children in the public schools, because these guys, without the money, the family money, they're not going to put them in they're not going to be able to put them in the private schools. Maybe some of the charter, but I'm against the charter. We need good public school systems. So then their wives would be concerned about public school systems here. And also what is going on in this city in the day-to-day life. Now, I tell, the black bitches, just because the white bitches are being a bitch to you, I'm not going to excuse it from you people. I want to see you little bitches in court as much as I want to see the white bitches and brown bitches and the yellow bitches. It really is a cat fight. And the men, all of the little bitches that you're sleeping with, are getting you in really bad trouble. I loved it with the enhanced interrogation tactics. One of the things was you couldn't do severe pain and suffering or what was it? Or like severe damage to bodily functions and organs. And one of the guys in the movie said, well, I think dead constitutes permanent damage to bodily organs of the person. I mean, in Cuomo's case, the women are upset because he touched her or hugged her. But it's okay to be waterboarding these guys. Doesn't matter if they're offended. Doesn't matter if we kill them. That's okay. I mean, it's just, they're all over the freaking map with their contentions and ideology. You know, of course, everybody's, like, men, women, and children are like, whoa, we don't even know where to go here. We don't know what the rules of the game are. So I wanted to play this. I mean, I was floored when I heard Meghan Kelley saying this one.
Trump a bit more than women overall, 56 to 44, Trump Biden. In 2021, women without a college degree went 75% white women, 75% for Youngkin, 25 for McAuliffe. And I will tell you, when I look at that and I see that the women with the college degree still favored McAuliffe, 62 to 38 for Youngkin, I think what's playing out there is, yes, revenge of the moms. These women without college degrees don't tend to be able to take advantage of private school. And they don't tend to be able to get their kids out of public education systems that are shoving things like CRT and trans ideology and inappropriate books down their throats. They have to go where they pay the taxes. And women who don't have a college degree very often can't afford private tutors, like somebody who's practicing law, or practicing medicine, or what have you, or involved in the government can do. And so they were the victims of this never-ending shutdown and the never-ending mask mandates, and felt powerless for much of the past year plus, until last night. And you tell me whether Democrats will hear that.
Some will. Some, what passes for a moderate Democrat today?
Okay, so what really pissed me off in this was, if you have a college degree, you're going to be a law doctor or lawyer or a professional woman in politics. And if you don't have a college degree in the demographics of the elections, it meant that you were a stay-at-home mom and bimbo. I mean, Bill Gates doesn't have a college degree. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have a college degree. It's this mixing match apples and oranges and coming out with some conclusion that makes absolutely no logical sense. And how much does this woman earn now that she advanced women's rights by coming out and speaking about Roger Ailes, and she got ousted from mainstream media? She started her own podcast or whatever these things are called, which of course she's making money from the advertising. So, she still has a large audience that would have followed her, and she does, here there's this one, there's 2,000 likes. I can't see her statistics, but obviously she's got quite a big following. I don't have hardly any likes, and my videos, maybe you'll get 5, 6, 30 viewers are good statistics. But I am not producing my videos. They're not monetized, and I would not do that. And I'm not producing my videos so that I'll have a big audience or that I'll be liked by anybody. I'm producing all of this to lay out all of the evidence that is going on, and for future, the Nuremberg trials too, and how I'm knocking at doors, slam the door in my face. The only thing that is going to happen is, okay, well, thank you very much. I'll put your name on the list of people who need to be investigated as well. Because if I'm knocking at your door, there is some obligation for you to act in some manner, form, or another. This is what the royals should be doing in Europe, instead of the lead, which started Camelot, Queen Victoria, of the pomp and circumstance of the Victorian era, and the hysteria of the Victorian woman. And that is what is being protected by all of these feminists. They want to be a new Queen Victoria or Queen Elizabeth II who sits up there and waves and has everybody cheering her on. But Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth, of course, she came in. You can't hold World War II on her, because it was after, she had been a child, but it is the family, and her reign has just set the stage for the rise of the Fourth Reich. because this is the industrialist with the techie liberals in England and Britain as much as the rest of Europe and the United States. And it's just as it has been for a long time, a power struggle between the landowners, agriculture, agrarian people, and the industrialists, who have now been joined by the techie liberals, who, I mean, you know, that's where your real political divide and power struggle comes. It's not a political ideology, because both sides are just using, you know, the communism, the capitalism debate, which I have shown that's not the problem. It's managerialism. So all of you capitalists, you're full of shit. All of you communists, you're full of shit. Now, if you want to have an ideological discussion with me, I would be more than happy, you know, on a freaking podium or wherever you want, and have a discussion. However, it should not be on taxpayers or shareholders' dime. It should be on your dime, and you should go out and get a real job instead of sitting around at your little country club, NGOs and think tanks here in DC, gossiping like the Stepford wives and Real Wives of Potomac, who you're married to. So, I mean, yeah, these agrarians, this is 100 representatives who live outside of DC and live in their districts. Now, I do get the whole thing about, well, when they come to DC, they lose, how shall I say, they get engrossed with DC, they lose touch with their home state. And I'm sure that's been the justification for these people to stay. No, you know, this is just like the expats and juggling. I mean, I'm working in international moves, but it's as applicable for national moves. I mean, in Europe, that's, you know, France to Spain is, if you will, national within Europe. But anybody who really is moving to a new city and has all of the issues to face and integration into that city. And I get that. But, you know, that doesn't mean that you have to lose touch and contact with your home country or your hometown or your home region. And I do understand the problem about the housing. Very easy solution for this. Really quite easy. As soon as we start seizing assets under RICO and all of that, cleaning up Washington, housing prices will drop. Housing, like with the White House, the president, they're provided with housing. I think the vice president, they're also provided with a house, I do believe. You know, adequate housing, because these people do need to do some sort of entertaining that comes with the job, and that comes under the purview of the wife. Now, I can understand a lot of these agrarian women, oh God, I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to go out and live in Washington and have the schmooze and all of that party bullshit with all these pretentious little Washington, you know, uppity bitches. And I agree. I want to get rid of them and bring some democracy and sanity to Washington. but I'm being creamed by all of these little uppity backstabbing bitches who want to run me out of town because I do want to clean up Dodge City. So, and unfortunately, most of the congressional members that I've seen who do come here, either their wives, again, they want to just cash in and hang out at the country clubs, or they want to use that to get a cushy job. And they get it within the government agencies, with the NGOs, within the think tanks, as a consultant. What is it? Adele Malpass's wife. She's got a cushy job within the Republican Party. So that, you know, and they use it to cash in. So it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. But as I say, the agrarian House members, you know, living back in their home state, I mean, you know, if you have a company, I can understand you don't want to sell it, because then if you don't win the next elections, you still want to have your livelihood. But, you know, see if people can manage your company, you know, members of your family can manage your company, or you can work something out to have somebody taking that on. You know, if you're being paid by Congress, I mean, look at it, it's like $150,000, $170,000 a year. It's not for you to manage your company in your home state. So there's a lot of issues. I still have, you know, questions. So, you know, do you just come here to vote? You are getting a substantial salary if that's all you're doing. And your staffers are just, you know, laughing all the way to the bank, because all they do is run around, go to another meeting and another, you know, cacophony, and add to the cacophony that's going on here instead of producing solutions. So I'm going to finish up with this. This is Huma Abedin. Say this is shows with Meghan Kelley on the right, Huma Abedin, we've got it on the left. I mean, oh, you talk about a typical social climbing. Dumb. I mean, okay, we've replaced the dumb blondes with the dumb, well, it's not brunette because her hair is black, but the dumb Middle Eastern, the dumb brown. I mean, it doesn't matter what color their hair is or what color their skin. Dumb is dumb is dumb is dumb. Her entitled little narcissist, I mean, talk about it. So her father, I guess, was Saudi Arabian, her mother Pakistani, you know, just totally protected. It's no different than the little, you know, Queen Victoria. See, it's the same type of bringing up a little pampered princess that doesn't know how to deal with any problem whatsoever. And you'll see, I mean, she was like, oh, when her husband, the whole scandal with her husband, you know, she thought of throwing herself off the metro, and DC Metro. Happens, and it's happening more and more frequently. People throw themselves out in suicide. Oh, yeah, I mean, if this woman went through 1/10 of what I've had to go through in my lifetime, and 1/10 of what most people have to deal with in this world. I'm talking about not the 10%ers, I'm talking about the 90% of the people in this world wouldn't survive. Now, this is a typical story of brown nosing within the Democratic Party. And I mean, she and Hillary Clinton are going to have to answer a lot of questions when this whole thing collapses. It's all one big protection racket to protect Republican and Democrats, the upper echelons in Washington, who have grappled up the ladder of success for the past 50, 60, 70 years. And it is a big, huge protection racket with academics who should be calling out the politicians and going and advising them. It's all advice for their particular faction, and feeding into the growing extremism, because leaders are only as good as those that surround them and who are giving them advice. I mean, this trend and fad, let's get as many stupid, brown-nosing, ass-kissing people and little ladies who will give head around us, who are so preoccupied with going shopping and becoming a great success that they won't notice what's going on. And this is Huma Abedin is a perfect classical case study. And I want to see this little lady in court. And we're going to be doing some psychological testing on her husband, and her son to explain how this is having it all. These feminists, they laid down the ground rules, and you men out there, you better check it out, because they're really I've sent you guys a bit.
By 2016, Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin were officially separated. A month after Hillary Clinton became the Democratic nominee for president, yet another bombshell. This picture of Weiner in bed with their young son was leaked. That triggered an investigation by Child Protective Services.
He does have his
They're
pants
showing up
on.
at
I
your
don't.
apartment all the
That doesn't
time,
indicate
checking on the well-being of your
pedophilia.
son. Were you worried you would lose your son?
Yes, ask any parent what it feels like. That somebody is judging whether you're a fit parent and whether you can keep your child. It's hard to put in words.
A few weeks later, Abedin's two lives truly came crashing together. Weiner was caught sexting with an underage girl, and FBI agents found emails involving Hillary Clinton on his laptop. Just 11 days before the election, FBI Director James Comey announced he was reopening an investigation into Clinton's emails. He would finally close the probe 2 days before Election Day, but many considered the damage had been done.
You're right. This man Weiner was going to ruin me. And now he was going to jeopardize Hillary Clinton's chances of winning the presidency. And then you write, you called Anthony Weiner and you said what? Anthony, I said, wanting to shake him through the phone. If she loses this election, it will be because of you and me. That night, I wrote one line in my notebook. I do not know how I am going to survive this. Help me, God. Yeah.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton.
It all ended.
I mean, I don't know how I'm going to survive this, that Hillary Clinton had lost. I hadn't the night before the elections, I'm at the Women's Democratic Club at DuPont Circle going, don't think it's in the bag. The next day I'm there saying, I told you so. The receptionist says, oh, we should stick you up on a podium. But Nurcha Courier, which is another Middle Eastern who with the Democrats, ooh, this lady also, this little lady's gonna want to see her up on the stand as well. You know, no. When she finds out what I'm, you know, what I'm about, see, the receptionist doesn't understand what's going on in the upper echelons. That's why she's the receptionist. But anybody who grapples up knows we're here for women power and women supremacy, and you are not welcome. I mean, the women, the Republican Democrats. My mother was the president of the Republican Women's Club of Tucson when I was young. So believe me, I know what kind of women serve on these boards, whether it be the Republican side or the Democratic side. And same problem exists in the expat wives clubs and all of these other women, the PTAs, all of that. It's just a place for the social climbing women, backstabbing bitches, because all of these, the women's organizations, particularly in the United States, and they're at the lead, these institutions are good and necessary, but if you have women in your communities who care about their families and care about their children instead of just makes me look good in the community and makes me look like a respectable woman, well, I go around and stab everybody in the back that I know in my social climbing efforts. I mean, that's what the Federation of American Women's Clubs is about. The FIOF, which is the French version, Fédération Internationale d'Associations Francophones et l'Étranger, I forget, FIOF, F-I-A-F-E. IMF Family Association, same deal. World Bank Family Network, UN, it's LESA, L-E-S-A, Local Expat Spouse Association. All of these little ladies, they're going to be there at the Nuremberg trials too. See, that's where you see not only are the staffers of the IMF and the World Bank and the UN taking taxpayers for a ride and cashing in on the rise of the Fourth Reich and rise of extremism and rise of the empire building of Americans and the Europeans in the West and Brazilians, South Americans. South Africa is at the lead with the Africans. India is see, the Middle East gets a little bit complicated because you got the Hindu there with under the Indians, Pakistani region, Sri Lanka, and then you have the Muslims. So as I say, because there you got the Saudi Arabians at the head, at the lead there, China and Asia, and then Russia, and in you know, it's still part of the Arab. That's part of Eurasia, is I guess. So it's just, you know, they're just in bed with the oppressive governments where the right and left are vying for power, but not the representing or advancing the general welfare of the people as they are supposed to in a democracy. The right basically is, we're going to keep on spending and over indebting, but we're not going to throw pennies to the poor. They need to learn how to get into the Machiavellian game and win like we do. And the left, who are just libertine party hardiers, who espouse liberal rhetoric, death of the liberal class. With Chris Hodges, you see that he explains a lot of it there, but he doesn't understand, he doesn't go into all of the social issues of why and how this happened and the women's role in it. So they, they want over indebtedness so they can keep on shopping and partying and keep up the golden age. She'll live forever. But they'll even go, they'll in debt in order to throw some pennies at charities to make them look like caring people, which they're not. They're just as exploitative and predatory as their Republican and their conservative counterparts, because they sold out. As I say, death of the liberal class, that goes back to the 80s. The yuppies and preppies and narcissism epidemic that started, and why trickle down has increased income inequality instead of producing, what Reagan predicted. And that's because his wife, Nancy Reagan, was just like, set the role model for all of the little ladies out there, amongst the Republicans, to live like Queen Elizabeth in pomp and circumstance and just say no to drugs while you're popping pharmaceutical pills and your kids are having to smoke dope pot in order to zen out from your crazy bullshit that you're producing in the house. Now, I lived like this. I mean, my father, I know my siblings. Now, this is going to be a big discussion because we found out, well, I'd known my father was on lithium for a lot, decades. And that was my mom who got him on lithium. I kept on saying, my God, we smoke some pot at extremely high levels of lithium. Now the question becomes, how did he, where do you get these the receipt, the prescriptions. But I mean, I'm furious, absolutely furious, because it was to deal with her and be able, I mean, anybody, enhanced interrogation tactics, having to be locked up in a room, particularly at the end there with the COVID stuff, in a room with my mother, I can assure you is torture. Now, I'd be happy. I mean, she's passed, I pray for her soul, but I would be happy to give anybody who wants to contest that a little experiment. We got Jim Reed, Same memo. Come on, you doubt it? Let me stick you in a room with him for a month and see if you don't need something. Or I could put you with my ex-husband and we'll see if you get agitated. The first idiot marriage counselor in Bogota said, "Oh, you seem agitated." Like 5 seconds when I came in there, I'm like, excuse me. Right. If it had been nowadays, I would be like, sir, if you lived with this crazy control freak asshole, you'd be agitated too. Instead of, oh, let's give her some tranquilizers. I said, sir, you're not doping me up. I mean, I would, I was, wow. Right away, I said, oh, okay, this is useless. Waste of time and money. And it was. Marriage counselor and see, the psychologist, well, this was the first in Bogota. It was a psychiatrist. In Madrid, it was a psychologist. That again, I've seen, and that was with my father as well. It's just a money-making business. That dope up the victims. And I mean, the whole mental health discussion going on now, led by Oprah Winfrey and Glenn Close and Meghan Markle, of mental health. You just have to understand that I'm a very sensitive person, and I just have to express my pain and my suffering and tell everybody how horrible my pain is and how horrible everything. No, what they are trying to do is normalize hysterical control freak bitches like Meghan Markle, Glenn Close. I mean, I couldn't believe when Glenn Close was referring, I don't know, it was Choate Rosemary Hall, St. George's, or the Moral Realignment, or what is it, Readjustment, Realignment organization in Switzerland as cults. I mean, even that wasn't a cult. They're doing the IMF and the World Bank are doing the exact same thing that the Moral Realignment, or as I say, a readjustment, whatever it's called, MRA. And that was started after World War I in order to prevent World War II. Then you had was it the League of Nations? See, they just keep on. Same institution, but failing for the same reasons. So in that sense, yes, okay, we can say the MRA was a cult, but why is she not denouncing and going after the IMF, the World Bank, the Bretton Woods initiatives, which has just exploded what the MRA was? That was maybe a couple thousand people at max. And now with the Bretton Woods stuff, and it's not just the Bretton Woods, it's all the think tanks and NGOs as well in DC. You're talking about millions of jobs for people, experts who never graduated from kindergarten, to sit around and espouse their ideological bullshit in the press, social media campaigns on the internet, and in congressional hearings up on Capitol Hill, etc. And it's all propaganda from these people, as left and right. And I can show, as I say, I've gathered names and names and names and names, and I just keep on gathering more and more and more and more. And the fact that the more evidence I have, the more names that I have together, the more people want to destroy me, is just strengthening my case when the entire house of cards finally does collapse. And it will. I mean, I'm trying that it happens through peaceful means and lawful means under the law. I have put together, this can totally be done in a lawful and legal manner. Nobody has to vote me into office. Nobody has to like me. Nobody has to, stick me up on a podium. No, the laws are there. The infractions are there. I've explained it. I've provided the argumentation for these lawyers in the courts. So there's absolutely no reason that nobody will submit. And I keep on, either they just ignore me or are really getting their face, they run away. Like I'm not going to notice. I'm like, every time you do that, because I'm right, I go, okay, fine. I know you want me to scream and yell and threaten you with some, bodily harm or something, because then you can call the cops on me. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to lose my temper. I know that's what you want. I mean, yeah, I lost my temper. It was the little ladies at the annual meetings 2016, little ladies from ICD. You and Catherine and Marie Nelson. But even there, I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, I was fit to be tied. Let's do an experiment. Let me run you through the gauntlet. Everything that I've been through the past 13 years. And let's see if you get angry. I mean, at least my older sister wanted the decency to say, well, if she wasn't angry, I'd be concerned. It would be because somebody had lobotomized me, like poor Rosemary Kennedy, JFK and Bobby's Kennedy's sister. Did lobotomize the poor woman. And then they've got the Kennedy Foundation that goes and is being, all about their big thing is mental retardation. That was Eunice who controlled that. See, Ethel got her little NGO. I mean, that's just disgusting. I mean, at least Jackie Kennedy, I mean, this is basically, the options for the upper crust women. And since the Kennedy family had now gotten into the upper crust, so Jackie O, she finds herself another millionaire. And Ethel, so a little more class, although God, I mean, really, I mean, he maybe had a lot of money, but I'm sorry. Whatever possessed her to marry somebody like that. I mean, my God. But then Ethel, and I mean, Eunice, it wasn't her husband with Jackie and Ethel, that was their husbands. so Jackie didn't, she could have started, a foundation, an NGO. Eunice had her foundation. Ethel had her foundation. She could have, JFK, human rights, or whatever, and really cashed in and gotten money that way instead of marrying another meal ticket. But Ethel went down the road of no. She's made her 11 kids. She showed how respectable she is. She's upset that her parties have stopped now that Bobby's dead. So she figures a way to cash in and on this all this whole stuff and make herself come out looking, smelling like a rose as a human rights champion. When one of the biggest backstabbing bitch alcoholics this city has ever known. An amoral, totally, along with the entire Kennedy family and their dynasty. As long as these little ladies and all of the different men, whether it be within the press, as I say, I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names with the journalists, but at the moment there's Carl Bernstein, Bob Woodward, Caitlin Collins, Carol Joint, Juan Williams, Chris Cuomo's jumped into that because it looks like the Andrew Cuomo, he's just gonna roll over and play dead with these feminists. He's not gonna stand up. It's a shame because he did show leadership during COVID, but this is I was looking at this Huma Abedin. Yeah, she just can't deal with any kind of challenge or problem in life. It becomes, doesn't know how she's going to survive. Whereas, oh my Lord, my entire life I've spent with people around me. Big problems and small, it doesn't matter. With me saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Gonna get you into trouble. So what do? They do it. And then come crying to me about the shit that they're in. And then I now have to clean up. So see, one of the advantages of living around entitled narcissistic people is either you absolutely, fall apart in a psychiatric ward or lobotomized because of all the chaos they create around you, or you learn how to handle and clean up even the biggest bullshit manure pile that they can possibly make. I've dealt with lots of bullshit in my life, lots of it. But I have to say, what I have found in Washington upon my return in the past 13 years, and in the entire country, is the biggest frickin' pile of manure I've ever seen. And I'm tired of shoveling the bullshit out, with everybody just throwing in more and more and more and more on top. So who knows? I'm hoping maybe some of the, because the problem is, I mean, you know, as I say, I've already got big wigs within the Republican Party up Schitt's Creek without a paddle, and their part in all of this. Maybe, you know, maybe some, because most of these guys, they've come in pretty, you know, within the last 10 years or so. I guess really is the aftermath of John McCain's loss. But what I'd like to point out to the Republican Party is that if my mother, whose good friend, Mike Helen, was John McCain's campaign manager in 2000, or one of his campaign managers in the 2008 election, had asked John McCain to assist me and tell the American consulate in Madrid to do its frickin' job as I was requesting, and make sure that they were watching everything that my lawyers were doing, everything that the judge was doing, everything that the file clerks were doing, nobody would have dared to pull the crap that they did. Now, everybody, you know, white privilege? How have I been beneficial of white privilege? The only way that I've been beneficial of white privilege in my life is by birth, you know, and the schools that I went to. Which a lot of brown, black, yellow, well, the greens, my knowledge didn't go there, and reds attended as well, and who have cashed in on the rise of the Fourth Reich in the past 40 years. These schools that I attended actually taught me to think and to you know, how to write a correct sentence in English, and comprehensive and cohesive narrative and dialogue in what I say, examine evidence and facts, argue with some kind of, you know, logic and reason. Unfortunately, my former schoolmates did not take away the same lessons from our schools. No, they saw them as vehicles, whether it be Foxcroft or GW, which is the Jewish, that's Japville as much as Foxcroft was Prepville. So I saw it amongst the you know, the Christian, if you will, as with the Kennedys, we brought in the Catholics. See, the Irish Catholics, this has really put the whole Kennedy Cuomo affair, well, going after Cuomo, and then that put Kerry Kennedy and the whole Kennedy family on my radar. That's where we see no different than you've got the Italian immigrants with the Sicilian mafia and all of that. The Irish Catholics, they had their mafias. That's what the PJ Kennedy was about. Asian groups, again, just come in to cash in. None of these groups have any concern about democracy in the United States, the Bill of Rights, or this country and its economic systems and you know, economic survival. It's all about rappelling up the ladder of success and cashing in. And that's why we will continue. And these people are not going to willingly give up this power. And why they're all, whether it's from the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, violent extremists, terrorists. You cannot negotiate with them. Democrats, alt-left terrorists. No negotiation. It's their way or the highway. I have tried. Same with the Republicans. They just want power and control for their party and for their specific group and faction. And the international community is just, you know, buying into it instead of, as the missions of their organizations claim, providing the oversight, saying this is not happening on my watch. George Clooney and Amal Clooney is another. Oh my God, she reminds me of Huma Abedin. 2 peas in a pod. Might make me vomit. So anyway, I guess that's what I was going to talk about today. I guess I still hadn't finished the it was the white trash that I was reading about the rise of the Reagan era, and what's happened since then. I guess I'll get into that and finish that up next time. But I was looking at this stuff. As I say, I've been working on these letters, hopefully. And I mean, it's a form letter this time I'm doing. And Freedom Caucus, Tea Party Caucus, there's several of them out there. I mean, this thing, you guys just put together another caucus, so you can get together and lunch. It's just like the girls. Let's do lunch. Ugh. I mean, even when I was, you know, in Bogota and had all of these social, you know, luncheons and ceremonies and receiving lines and all of that crap, I didn't like try to make it any more than was absolutely necessary in the socializing arena. But I did have a life. I mean, my God, I did rode a horse almost every day, went to the gym every day, had my jewelry classes. I mean, okay, that was every day of the week, Monday through Friday. If I missed, particularly at the end, because I had my taller at the house, and would work at the house. So if there was, you know, a field trip with the kids, or when I got involved in Bogota, I really couldn't go, because then I also was organizing the cultural visits. Ended up, whole thing thrown in my lap, and I had to organize everything. Because of little bit backstabbing bitches, Gina Bosdur and Nadej Kempthor, who tried to oust me. I mean, she and Gina Paoni should get together. Unfortunately, well, Gina Bosdur, I'm sure she got involved in something that could probably land her ass in jail. Was her husband's with the French embassy, ministre des Affaires étrangères. Oh, but Gina Peony, oh Lord, that little lady, she picked her own bitch to look for a fight with. She, Adrian, Sharmini Curry over at ICD, and all of the staffers in ICD who have decide with these little feminist backstabbing bitches and power hungry bitches really should have been a little bit more careful about who, whose team they get on. They wanted to crapshoot everything they've got to protect these little ladies. It's their prerogative, just like everybody else in Washington. You want to crapshoot your farm, your homes, your livelihood, your freedom, in order to protect these little whores that you have around here. Maybe in the next life, you'll realize that women do play an important role in the well-functioning of the social order. The wives, the mothers who actually care about something other than shopping and sleeping with the tennis pro. Because that's all. That's the bottom line of all the little ladies in Washington. That's the only thing anybody cares about. And having an audience. I mean, I couldn't believe Meghan Kelley when, and her husband was like, yeah, it's normal. Oh yeah, I gave him head to get ahead because I so wanted to be on TV. I mean, I'm not even willing to do that to not end up on the streets in a homeless shelter. And I'm more qualified than she is to be a journalist or a lawyer. Once again, proof of the damage these little dumb blondes, well and sleep their way up the ladder of success, is doing to women's rights, as well as the well-functioning of commerce and politics and economy in the public arena. They want to get into the public arena and have these great jobs. Well, they better assume, because they're screwing up the workplace, they're screwing up their kids, and they're screwing up their marriages and the economy in the process, and the social order as well. So as I keep on saying, I want them all up in court explaining their lies and having it all propaganda in order to sell that to the younger generation, as well as denigrate and marginalize and ostracize any woman who did not opt in to the workplace. And they know that you can't have it all. And they know that they've screwed up their kids, and they know that they've screwed up the workplace, and they know that they screwed up their marriage. And that's why somebody like me, who has shown you can have it all. You really can. You have children, you dedicate yourself to your children, you help your husband with his career, make it up. Well, if he doesn't screw it up, then he doesn't have to be president. Whatever his capacity may be. but that is part of your job. And the higher up in commerce, politics, or anywhere else your husbands might get, the more work it's going to be for you, not in the home, but in the community. And that's the problem. You know, these women don't want to do that work. They want to be out there cashing in themselves and, you know, being able to propagate their bullying ideologies and efforts to become the new masters of the universe. Putting women into position of power has not and does not have I mean, the evidence is flagrant. It's been creating problems and problems and problems, and why women were traditionally kept out of positions of power. Now, the solution is not, the solution is don't produce your Queen Victorias, your Queen Elizabeth II, your Meghan Kellys, your Huma Abedin, your Amal Clooney, your Sharmini Curry, your Gina Paoni, your Phyllis Chesler, Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Of course, Betty Friedan is gone, but everybody else, I've lost 15 years of my freaking life, as have, okay, my children, thank God that, they weren't totally destroyed, but I got a lot of reparations to make there while everybody else sits in jail. And how many women and children have died in the past 15 years, been trafficked, been raped, been tortured? How many lives have been destroyed, apart from my own? Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions, because everybody around me wants to go shopping, jet set, make everybody believe that they're these respectable people because they have all of these material possessions. It's disgusting. It really is. And everybody, and they are many, 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 many people, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. I have their names. I want to see them explain in court. I have produced facts, evidence of what is wrong in Washington. And nobody wants to deal with it because they don't know how, just like with Huma Abedin. They do not know how to deal with any problems, whether it be with their marriages, their children, or their area of expertise. Good governance, politics, economics, finance. So they just keep sweeping it under the carpet, and hope we'll just kick it down the road, and then we'll be gone by the time the fallout comes, and won't have to deal with it. Yeah, but if you're still alive, you go to jail. So anyway, have a nice evening. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.